Good morning, boys and girls. Welcome back. Again, we're glad you're here. Do you remember who we started talking about last week? What was the name of the character? Oh, there we go. Good job, Peter. Starts with an R. Peter gave you a hint. Have you come up with it? There's only 2 books in the Bible named after ladies, and this is one of them. All right, the book is the book of Ruth, boys and girls. Today we're going to cover chapter 2, part number 2 of the life of Ruth. Last week, though, we had talked about showing love, that Ruth had shown love by going with Naomi back to her country. Well, boys and girls, did you show love this week? Were you selfless or were you selfish? Which one was it? Yeah, if we're honest, boys and girls, we all had those selfish moments this last week, and we could probably stop right here and be like, yep, I'm going to go work on that some more. But we're going to continue with the life of Ruth and continue to see what happens to her and her commitment to Naomi. In verse number 1 of chapter 2, it says, "And Naomi had a kinsman of her husband's, a mighty man of wealth, of the family of Elimelech, and his name was Boaz." The beginning of chapter 2 kind of gives us just this background statement that's just stuck in there. It tells us who this Boaz is, but then it goes on and it doesn't even talk about him right away. So it kind of sets the background for us that there's a kinsman, there is a relative. If you remember last week, we talked about how they would marry the brother when their husband had died. Well, this isn't a brother, but it's a near kinsman. It's a relative, and it tells us that he's wealthy. Well, it inserts that statement, and then it takes us back to Ruth and Naomi carrying on a conversation. So Ruth is saying, well, this is the time of barley harvest. I've seen lots of people out gleaning harvest, and she's talking with Naomi. That's right, they're hungry, they want food. Is it okay, she asked Naomi, is it okay for me to go out and try to glean or try to get some of the barley? Well, boys and girls, it was kind of part of, again, of their tradition. We don't really do this. Most of us aren't growing up in a farming community. Well, I grew up, and anyways, Peter likes to tease me about that. A little bit of an inside joke. I did not grow up on a farm, contrary to popular opinion. Anyways, in the farming community that they're in, though, boys and girls, there would be the people who owned the land often had servants or people who worked for them who would go out and collect the harvest for them. But they would leave behind some for the poor people or those who didn't own land or the widows or those who maybe had a harder lot. It was very common for them to leave behind some food for them to glean. This was very normal. To us, we'd be like, well, you can't just walk into a stranger's land and start picking their corn. But in this time frame, that's kind of how they helped take care of the widows and those who couldn't work or plant on their own. So Ruth goes, and I found this interesting as I was reading and as I was studying. Verse number 3, so they've had this conversation. Ruth goes out. It says, "And she went and came and gleaned in the field after the reapers. And her hap was to light on a part of the field belonging unto Boaz, who is of the kindred of Elimelech." And her hap, which I thought, basically, she just happened to end up in Boaz's field. She's never met Boaz. She knows of him, but she's never met him. And she just happens to pick his field. What do you think, boys and girls? Did God lead her to that field, or did she, just randomly pick? God led her there, boys and girls. God had a special plan for her. And it's really neat to see how Naomi didn't say, you should go to the third farm on the right. No. Naomi doesn't tell her where to go. She doesn't tell her where Boaz is. And yet God leads Ruth right to where God wants her. Well, I shouldn't get ahead of myself because it's almost like giving the end away, boys and girls. But I just thought that was super neat reading that, how Naomi hadn't told her where to go, and yet she ends up in Boaz's field. So she is working there. God orchestrated it out. And Boaz comes and he sees her working in the field. And he notices her and he's like, wait a minute, that's not an Israelite. That's one of the Moabites. That's the one who came back with Naomi. And he kind of picks her out, notices her, talks to a servant about her, like, when did she get here? How long has she been here? And Boaz tells his servants, he's like, you let her pick where she wants to pick. Let her, leave her alone. Don't talk to her, don't shun her away. Don't tell her she can't be there. I want her to get some of the good barley. And he says basically to show her favor, be kind to her. So Boaz tells Ruth this. He goes out and he talks to Ruth. He says, I want you to pick with my servants. I want you to have some of the good stuff, some of the nice stuff. He says, and if you get thirsty, come on in the house. Come in and get something to drink. And he's showing her kindness all around. Boys and girls, verse number 10 is a unique verse again. It says, then she fell on her face and bowed herself to the ground and said unto him, why have I found grace in thine eyes, that thou shouldest take knowledge of me, seeing I am a stranger? Says, wait a minute. Why are you being so kind to me? Why are you being so nice to me? I mean, I'm a stranger. I'm from a foreign land. Why are you doing this? Verse number 11, Boaz answers. And Boaz answered and said unto her, it hath fully been showed me all that thou hast done unto thy mother-in-law since the death of thine husband, and how thou hast left thy father and thy mother, and the land of thy nativity, and art come unto a people which thou knowest not heretofore. He says, I've heard about you. I've heard what you've done for Naomi. Your reputation, we would say, precedes you. I've heard what you've done and the kindness that you've showed Naomi. And basically, boys and girls, you reap what you sow. You've sown kindness. Now you're reaping kindness. Love that she had shown was, in a sense, being shown back to her. Well, Boaz invites her in for lunch, and he's continuing to show her favor and being kind to her. He goes to the point where he even tells his servants, purposefully drop food so she can pick it up. Yeah, exactly. Purposely make it so that she is well taken care of. Well, the Bible tells us that Ruth worked all day, boys and girls. Even though they were dropping food for her and, in a sense, making it a little bit easier, she worked very hard. She was hardworking. She worked all day long. It gets to the end of the day, and she's done the work, and she goes home, and she tells Naomi about her day. What do you think Naomi's thinking, boys and girls, when she finds out? That's right. She's overwhelmed with what God is doing for them. That she's worked in the field, she works in the field through the barley harvest and through the wheat harvest, boys and girls. She didn't just go for one day. She continued to work hard. Boys and girls, is that your reputation? Ruth's reputation was known, that she was a person who was kind and loving. Does your reputation say that? Are you kind? Are you loving? Are you selfless? And do you work hard, boys and girls? Do you work hard at whatever you do? You probably don't care for all your subjects in school, okay? There are some subjects, boys and girls, that I really enjoy teaching. There are others that I teach because they're part of the curriculum, and I enjoy teaching students much more than the material. But boys and girls, do you do your math homework just as hard as you do your reading? Because maybe you enjoy the stories in reading, but math's kind of hard. Maybe you're a math person and you could care less for grammar. Do you spend as much time, though, putting the effort in? Some subjects don't take as long, I know, boys and girls, but do you put the effort in? Or do you say, I'm just not good at spelling, I'm going to give up? Or math's just too hard, I'm just going to slap down any old answer? Or as my students are struggling to learn, sometimes your teacher asks you to show your work. Do you do that? Do you obey and work hard and give the effort? Or do you try to get by with just the minimum? Boys and girls, it's better to learn young. Work hard, do your best at all you do, give 100%. Don't slack off. Don't have a reputation of being someone who's lazy. This week, boys and girls, take it as a challenge. Tomorrow morning when you go to school, if your day starts with Bible class or whatever your class starts with, give it 100%. Learn as much as you can learn. And for you adults out there, because I know there are many, as you go to work tomorrow, Monday morning, I hope you'll take it to heart too, that just as Ruth worked very hard out in the hot sun, although we don't have that here in Michigan at this time of year, I hope you'll work hard as well. Thanks for joining us. See you next week for Ruth